Okay, so at the conclusion of turn 12, we received some additional proposals here in the chat. From Captain Hook, I propose that we end this with honor and make Rod lose a little more hair. The remaining troops should be idle and allow the 2 armored foot units to lock in glorious night-on-night combat. At first break from the melee, we can call a truce and allow the French, which is the red side, home to their wives and children. What say thee? And to that, R-Dubs has said, fine by me. Same thing from Boz. Yeah, this was over a few turns ago already, I think. And then some other joking in the channel. But yes, all jokes aside, let's go ahead and try what was proposed. So here we are at the start of turn number 13, at the end of turn number 12. A call for clemency or mercy goes out from the English camp to the survivors on the French side. Unfortunately, the men of notable name are now lying dead on the field. So who knows what shall happen here. This block of armored foot was required to retreat 1.5 moves backs to the enemy and must rally. When it comes to rally, I think it's automatic unless they are contacted. Let's take a look here. Troops forced back in retreat or rout backs to the enemy must remain unmoved on the following turn while they rally. If attacked while rallying, a die must be rolled to determine if they manage to quickly rally or continue. Okay, and then the proposal was that this block of armored foot would move forward into contact with them and combat would continue. So I'm going to go ahead and move these guys. I'm going to cease all other movement. I'm going to move these guys forward 6 inches, which is what armored foot can do. And we'll see where that leaves us. So 6 inches leaves us here. That's the end of the movement. There's no missile, no artillery, no melee. This unit was not contacted and has rallied. Unfortunately, they're still pointed in the wrong direction. Let's apply fatigue. So their fatigue markers are, well, at least 1 full fatigue marker is cleared. These guys incur an additional movement fatigue marker, which I don't think is a big deal at this point. I'm not going to bother removing all the other fatigue markers from everyone else right now, since that doesn't matter. Okay, so that would be the end of turn 13. Turn 14 now comes on the field. And assuming each of these turns is a half an hour, and this is in the summertime, it's still possible that the sun is up, although I think the sun is waning at this point. Okay, so to take them another 6 would bring them into contact here. This would allow this unit of armored foot to do an about face, so they are facing in the correct direction. An about face is a full move, if I am remembering correctly. Yes, an about face is a full move, so they will incur their second normal fatigue marker. And these guys will have a third normal fatigue marker. And now it is possible for both of these units to charge each other. I think, since it seemed to me from the chat that we wanted this to be as honorable and straight up of a fight as possible, let's flip us now to turn 15 and think about how we can accomplish that. Turn 15. I think we're going to subtract some movement here for these guys to wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll assume that that is a charge, and this will allow these to charge on the oblique. So subtract 1/4 of their move for moving to the oblique. That still leaves them with 4.5. And the distance between these units at this point is 1, 2, 3.5. So yes, we're going to move these on a 45-degree angle like this so that they lock exactly into combat. Look at that. We actually used the rules and everything is successful. Now, before this first round of melee takes place, let's go ahead and put the charge markers on there, because I will consider that to be a charge from both sides, and then we'll see what happens here. I don't think we have at this point any fatigue, but let's check it out. It would be funny if this ends up working against the English. So the English have moved 3 and charged. So move 5 consecutive turns, move 2 consecutive turns, charging, then meleeing. Yeah, neither side is fatigued at this point. Okay, this is going to be a glorious melee. Let's make sure we're actually capturing this. I see numbers moving on the phone. Okay. So I believe this is 10 in contact. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, 10 versus 10. Neither side fatigued. Straight up fight. Armored foot versus armored foot. Hallelujah. For once. And the army commander is not in range to exert any influence. No hero is attached. It's a straight up slugfest, which is, I think, what we wanted to test here, guys, right? Because the whole purpose of this was to change, to go back to the second edition interpretation of the combat, which is more aligned with, we're only talking about men that are actually, fighting men that are actually in contact with each other matter for the post-melee morale calculation, not entire blocks, because if you do that, we've done some thought experiments and multiple discussions and a playthrough by Captain Hook. Anyway, the short answer is this is what we wanted to test anyway. Large blocks of troops with a different interpretation of melee. So this is going to be exciting. Armored foot versus armored foot. 1 die per man, 6 kills. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. All right. This is for the blue side. 6s are the only thing that kill. So out of all of that, we had 1 kill inflicted by blue. Now the red side. Let's get these off the table. We don't want to get confusion here. 2 kills. We have a 6 and a 6. I think we already know what's going to happen here. It's going to be a melee continues, but let's do the math for those at home that haven't had a chance to experience this. So, my stupid dog wants to go out, and he is going to have to wait. Let's take 1 man from the end here, because blue inflicted 1 casualty, and let's take 2 men off of the end here for the blue side. Okay. So who inflicted the most casualties here? It would be red that inflicted 1 more casualty than blue did. So for step 1, it's 1 times the dice roll. And here, I'll make a note for those viewers at home. I have consistently forgotten to apply the bonus for a hero or an army commander on this morale. Technically, this is a morale dice roll. So I'm going to, fortunately this time none of that matters, but I rolled a 3. So this is actually 3 points for step 1. Step 2, we look at the raw number of survivors on both sides. This side has 9 survivors, and this side has 8. Now I could boil this down, but let's go ahead and put these out there, just so everyone at home can keep track. So this is step 2, which is the raw number of survivors on both sides. Now, we're taking the multiple of the morale rating, and we find that multiple right at the beginning of the post-melee morale calculation. So you're going to flip to that page. Armored foot, 7. So in this case, 7 times 8 is going to be 56. 56. And in this case, it's going to be... Okay, so you may notice a little bit of difference on the board here. I have had to reset some things because I realized that in my enthusiasm, I failed at simple multiplication. Also, Just a side note, there was no need to check morale from this mutual charge because unless there is a cavalry unit, there's no morale check for a charge. So armored foot versus armored foot, no cavalry unit. Okay, so let's recap here, just so that my mental state is caught up to where we are. I've reset the fatigue markers and everything else. I thought this battle was done, but it's really not. Okay, so step 1, red got a 3. Step 2, they have 9 survivors versus blue having 8 survivors. Now this is where I messed up. If you look at the little table for post-melee morale, armored foot are worth 7. Now, because there's 1 unit of difference between the two, really this side is going to have 7 points more than that side. So let's keep this math very simple here, right? So we're going to give these guys 7 points, and then these guys had 8 points, right? So let's get this 8 off the table now. So 8 and 8 cancels out, so that leaves us with 12, which, like I thought originally, would have been melee continues, except the fact that we do have less than 20 figures in contact, assuming that 10 and 10 are each individually handled, right, instead of in the aggregate. But we're going to double this number. So instead of 12, it's going to be 24. This is going to be back 2 moves in good order that gets applied to the blue/English side. And at that point, we are going to end this combat. These guys will, because of doing a round of melee, will end up also being fatigued, whereas these guys are just, they'll end up being fatigued as well. These guys will end up fatigued with 1 movement token to spare, and these guys will be exactly fatigued, and then the combat ends. We do have to handle, however, the prisoners so that the points are right here. So when a unit retreats, it suffers at least 1 prisoner. And then because it's foot versus foot, the winner is foot, the loser is foot. That would be the number rolled on the dice for additional prisoners. So red will also take 3 more prisoners. And then they must give up a guard. So to recap here, red has to give up a guard and suffered a casualty. Blue suffered 2 casualties and also gave up 4 prisoners and must now move back 2 moves in good order. And I will take a photo of where this ends up being. Okay, and instead of moving just the rank and contact back those 2 moves, I think we already saw the additional overhead that scattering produces. So I'm keeping the unit together as a block. This movement tray can really come out of there at this point. Not doing much good at all. But I think this was an enjoyable experience for everybody. We will be doing an after-action review. Maybe we'll hop on Zoom or something or record it. I don't know. We will also have the opportunity for me to comment on a couple tactical errors that I saw. Definitely, I've played games with a river before, and so I knew this was potentially going to be a disaster for someone that hadn't already gamed through it with this rule set or one of the older rule sets like that. There was definitely something that the red side could have done with their delayed deployment and that river. They could have deployed differently, and it would have really messed up, I think, with blues. It would have messed with blue's head, and I'll make a short video to go through that. But all in all, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for letting me referee on this one. It has been a lot of work. I won't be sad to see this table disappear. Thank you all for your time and attention.